Yeah, yeah, yeah. Their music never gets old. Alrighty. Welcome to the RaceGuru Thunder Hour. I am your host, Sean Engel, Sean at Shawnee247. That's where you can find me on the X app or Twitter if you prefer to still call it that like I do. And we have ourselves a show today. But before we get started, let me go and plug in fantasyguru.com. Right now at fantasyguru.com, we're still selling the MVP Game Time All Access Pass. So you can get that over there for $39.99. It has all the sports other than, say, MLB and NFL. Pretty much any of the sports that you see on this image on screen right now, that is where you can go forth and get involved with our product. NBA, NCAA, NHL, PGA, MMA, soccer, and racing, of course, which we cover right here at fantasyguru.com. So go over there, get the Game Time MVP plan. But we also have a special offer that is going to be live, and it's going to be limited time, so you're going to want to get in on it, Fantasy Guru audience. And that is that if you get any MLB package at fantasyguru.com right now, you can get the Game Time MVP All-In Pass for free. So at one price, you can get all those sports that I just named there with MLB, and you'll be covered for a whole year. I don't see how the deals can get any better than that. It's really cool. It's really awesome. You can get in touch with all our experts that way through Discord, such as Ray Flowers or Ted Schuster or even Jeff Manns, if you wanted to go forth and talk with him on NBA or MLB, whatever sport is there. That is the offer for you. Go over to fantasyguru.com. You can go over to fantasyguru.com/proc/MLB memberships in order to get in on that action for today. Now, you may notice there is no Rich Mileto here this week. Rich is off traveling. He is not around. He said he wouldn't be able to have the time in order to go forth and be here with me today. But I am not alone. That's right. For the first time in RaceGuru Thunder Hour history, we have a guest on here. And we're going to be introducing our guest. With me today is Dylan Schmittler at Dylan Sports One. He is with us right now. Dylan, how are you doing tonight? Welcome to the RaceGuru Thunder Hour.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great, Sean. By the way, does your package come with a rain delay preventers? Because all I'm seeing is rain delay after rain delay in Major League Baseball.
I'm not sure if I'm the best person to ask, but we can definitely have the viewers, or even if you wanted to get the package, Dylan, you could even ask our MLB expert, Ray Flowers. He'll know that better than I do, and he has an eye for the weather. So there you go.
I'm gonna have MLB make sure that all games in April are played in domes on warm weather.
Well, we can try our best with the weather, but we're still going to be out there. We're still going to give it our best, right, Dylan?
Yep.
All righty. So, Dylan, tell the Fantasy Guru audience a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your NASCAR experience and your different sorts of things that you do as the host of the Big D podcast and as a contributor for other sites before.
Yeah. I host the Big D podcast. We do all kinds of content. This week I did Masters and UFC 300, but NASCAR's been one of not my biggest sport. I remember watching races back in the 90s. Like my mom would have this box call where I would have like a 24 with wheels on it back in the day. So I mean, NASCAR's been in my blood forever.
Wow, that's awesome to hear. So you were a big Jeff Gordon fan back in the day.
I'm actually true. I met I met Jeff Gordon when he came to Clewiston, Florida in 2003.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm a big Jeff fan myself. He was my childhood driver and was my driver for the longest time. So I always get a kick out of hearing different Jeff Gordon stories. So cool to know somebody else that has one right there too.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how things change. I mean, back when I started watching racing, I mean, Jeff Gordon was driving. Now he's what? I don't know if you say Paul Onan, but like the number 2 of Hendrick Motorsports.
Yeah, he's the vice chairman over at Hendrick Motorsports now, going forth and mentoring all those young drivers there. The 4-driver stable, Kyle Larson, William Byron, Chase Elliott, and Alex Bowman. Time has certainly changed, that is for sure.
Now the question is, where does Jeff Gordon, where does Hendrick Motorsports keep all those grandfather clocks?
As far as from what I've heard record of Jeff saying, he keeps them in all sorts of different places there. He has some of it at his home, some with his family, some with his team members or back at the shops. That's as far as I remember.
I don't think Dale Jr. would give up his grandfather clock.
Yeah, I think he's keeping a lot of them as it is too. So I think Dale Jr. only has one grandfather clock.
2014.
Yeah, that's right. 10 years ago. Man, time flies. And that was over at Martinsville there. So anything else regarding your podcast that the viewers should know about you?
May have some NFL draft coverage because we're 2 weeks from the NFL draft tonight. So for all you football fans, check me out because we'll have some more draft coverage.
All righty. That sounds good. I know Fantasy Guru is very much into NFL. So for the Elite Mafia out there, you can go forth. You can follow Dylan. He'll be posting episodes of the Big D podcast out there. You can find it on different podcast networks. But you know what? Let's go on. And we mentioned about Martinsville. We mentioned about grandfather clocks. How about we go forth and recap what happened during the weekend there, Dylan? So let's get right on into it. We've had 3 races there. We had the Truck Series race that got dominated by Christian Eckes. It became a bit of a demolition derby in the second half, but Ty Majeski was there competing for the win. Did you catch the truck race at all this past weekend?
A little bit, but every time I turned into the truck race, it seemed like somebody was spinning out.
Yeah, there certainly was a lot of spinning out going on, especially with some multi-car pileups. Looked like a total gridlock out there sometimes, Dylan.
When you're going 60 miles an hour in the corner, it can look like rush hour traffic.
Yeah, pretty much. Man, oh man, oh man. It was quite something. Anyway, getting into the Xfinity Series race now. Despite the lead switching between a few different drivers, Cole Custer and Sammy Smith mainly, but Sam Mayer and Justin Allgaier were also competitive. Eric Almirola ended up being the dominant driver in the Martinsville race this past weekend. What do you think of the Xfinity race? Were you able to catch that, Dylan?
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, it was a race where experience played over the young guys because Eric Almirola wasn't great on new tires, but once he got about 10, 15 laps on those puppies, he looked more like the Eric Almirola I'm used to seeing because Eric Almirola is not necessarily a short track racer. I mean, remember the Cup Series race at Loudon in 2021 he won, but I think that was probably due to literally everybody wrecking in the rain.
Yeah, that race I do remember way back when. That was the race when they tried to get it started when it was just still rain on the track because the track was still wet. And then Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. wrecked all the way on the second lap and couldn't continue pretty much. So that opened the door wide open.
Maybe they need these sort of wet, sort of dry tires from Richmond.
Yeah, but back then I believe they did not have that finalized yet. So It's amazing how NASCAR can progress and change sometimes with them having the rain tires now at short tracks.
But actually, the rain times at Richmond might have been the best part of the race.
Yeah, that definitely was one of the best parts of Richmond about 2 weeks ago. There, I'm trying not to think about Richmond too much because Richmond got me hot and bothered. I don't know if you saw last week's episode or if anybody in the Elite Mafia saw last week's episode where I got a little hot and bothered there. But Richmond was definitely an event. Let's put it that way.
And we have Bubba to blame, and we have Bubba and Kyle Lawson to blame for that.
Yeah. Amongst other circumstances there. But speaking of getting it back to Martinsville this past weekend, we still have one more race to mention, the Cup Series race, where it ended up being Hendrick Motorsports putting on a clinic with their first ever 1-2-3 finish at Martinsville. William Byron ended up winning the race. Kyle Larson was second. Chase Elliott was third. What were your thoughts on the Cup race at Martinsville, Dylan?
What I thought of the race was Rudy Fugel's a genius because that pit call went to pit and Byron a lap or two before everybody else did matter. It seemed like the 24 call was the only call that could pass anybody in traffic, which at Martinsville there's a lot of traffic. And maybe I mean, yes, they're all serving tracks for serving teams. I mean, Hendrick Motorsports has certainly figured out Martinsville. It does matter, especially in the spring, because, I mean, Byron's got a couple wins in the spring. Kyle Lawson won last year's race. I mean, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, both won 4 races. Hendrick Motorsports seemingly can do well at Martinsville. But I also look at what happened with Denny Hamlin, because how can you go from winning the second stage, dominating the race, to literally not going anywhere in traffic?
Yeah, I would like to think that would have to do with just the fact that the short track package, as many have pointed out on the internet, certainly needs a lot of work, just to put it lightly there. But also, I know Denny at that last caution there when we were getting into overtime. Chris Gapehart made the call in order for the 11 to pit, and that ended up putting him back a little bit, and he wasn't able to make up ground towards the end. So that left room for that 1-2-3 finish there.
I mean, Denny's either starting on the outside road 2, which is not fun, or starting way back in the middle of nowhere on full flesh tires, where you couldn't pass the dump truck.
Yeah, pretty much. He tried making passes. He said it in his post-race interviews. He tried moving people along, but he just couldn't. He just could not.
You just need the Hendrick Motorsports guys to wreck each other a la I don't remember what year it was when Clint Boyer took out Jeff and Jimmy.
That was 2012, because I know that was the main catalyst for Gordon getting angry at Boyer at Phoenix later that year.
Yeah, we know where the fights start. We don't know where they end up.
Yeah, exactly. So overall, when we talk about other drivers that had good days at Martinsville in the Cup Series, we have to think about Tyler Reddick, who started 19th and finished inside the top 10 and 7th there. And then we also have Alex Bowman still sneaking out of top 10, meaning all 4 Hendrick cars finished in the top 10. Ryan Preece, he started 22nd, finished in the 9th position. And with Chase Briscoe in 10th, we had 2 Stewart-Haas racing cars finish inside the top 10. Dylan, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, at Martinsville, aerodynamics doesn't matter. It's a driver's track, and Ryan Preece could drive any bull ring in North America. And Chase Briscoe's a sneaky short track racer, particularly at Martinsville. He almost won the playoff race there the year Christopher Bell won his way into Phoenix. But Chase is really good. It's a track where the Ford's not at a disadvantage aero-wise, and a driver can showcase his talent. I mean, speaking of Fords, how about Ryan Blaney looking like he was going to end up finishing 20th and then ending up P5, where the Penske calls, I don't know how the Penske calls did it, but Logano and Blaney ran half the race on 2 tires.
Yeah, Logano ended up leading 84 laps. That's the third most laps of all the drivers that led at Martinsville there. And the only 2 drivers that led more were the drivers that finished P1 and P2, Byron and Larson.
Yeah, it's weird how nobody could pass Logano on 2 tires, and Blaine kept his position. I'm like, usually the tire advantage would help out, but it didn't seem to affect the Penske calls whatsoever and ever.
Yeah. Ultimately, what this race did show was that while we're still on this package and while we're still dealing with the tires like this, track position is king. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Would you wish NASCAR would work on figuring out how to unshift these calls where the guys actually don't have to shift, or figure out a time where we can get sort of a race like Bristol where that race was bonkers?
Yeah, absolutely balls to the wall crazy. But in a probably the best of ways so far this season when you compare it to the other shorter tracks.
Indeed, because because it's funny how the older drivers won Bristol. Wonder who can take care of the tires longer than anyone else.
Yeah, we do wonder about that, but we're no longer going to be in the short tracks this week. As we're finally out of the short track hole, we're going to head to a 1.5 miles this week. But before we get on into Texas, before we get on into this week's race, let's go forth and review some of the small news headlines that we've been dealing with in the world of NASCAR this week. And although this first news headline is kind of a little bit of a NASCAR IndyCar crossover. And it's the fact that earlier this week, we had Kyle Larson, who, as we know, drives the 5 in the Cup Series for Rick Hendrick. He's also driving in the Indianapolis 500 this week, and he clocked in as the second fastest driver during IndyCar testing for the Indianapolis 500 this week there, Dylan. What do you think about this? Do we really think that Larson could be a legitimate threat to win the Indianapolis 500?
I don't think Kyle Lawson will go half-heartedly into Indy, but I mean, driver-wise, I don't worry about Kyle Lawson speed. I mean, Kyle Lawson can handle any call by itself. I worry about Kyle Lawson on race day because how is he going to handle being in traffic? Because these calls are going to be way different in traffic than in clean air when you're just focusing on 1 lap or 4 laps.
Yeah, Indy cars and NASCAR stock cars, they are quite different. Open wheel versus stock car, we already know in history that there's been a number of drivers that attempted the Indy 500 Coke 600 double. Larson's going to be the latest driver to do it. The last driver to even try the feat was Kurt Busch a couple years ago. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. But this test run so far from this week seems pretty promising in Larson's favor.
Yeah, by the way, I think Joseph Newgarden was fastest at Indy, and there wasn't any testing today because you won't believe it. It rained and it rained at the Brickyard.
Man, it just seems like no matter where we go, no matter what the sport, we're always out there dealing with rain of some kind. First MLB, now this.
I blamed Kyle Lawson for the rain at the Brickyard today.
Oh, Kyle Larson going out there pulling a rain dance. Oh man, that'd be fun.
Maybe they need a DW Vortex steering around every race.
Oh man, if only he was able to utilize something like that during the actual Cup races more often, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Anyway, getting on into our next little news bullet point, but the CW, who will broadcast the Xfinity Series next year for all their races, has been able to go forth and secure a deal from NBC in order to air the last 8 races of the Xfinity Series season over on the CW. What are your thoughts on this, Dylan?
Obviously, I think NASCAR wants to increase its networks, because back in the day you would have different races on different networks, and I mean next year there'd be races on Fox, there'd be races on Turner, there'd be races on streaming platforms, and obviously CW. I think it's a chance to maybe have a different market, just give it like a test run, see how the CW will air NBC race, because I think it'll be mostly an NBC broadcast just on the CW network.
Yeah, pretty much. They're using the same 3 commentators that were going to be in the Cup Series races. You know, Rick Allen, Steve Letarte, and Jeff Burton. They're going to call all 8 of these races on the CW there. And they also call all the races for the NBC sports portion of the season in the Cup Series as well.
Although it is weird, why isn't Dale Jr. Covering NBC races this year? I know he's doing everything next year, but what's going on there?
As far as I know, I do not believe the full details of this are public yet, so I have not 100% idea. All I know is that apparently, according to the rumors, is that because he's going into Amazon and TNT next year, that maybe that there's a chance that could have something to do with it, or they just didn't renew his deal. We don't fully know yet as of right now, I think.
Because like Kirk Herbstreit does Thursday night for Amazon Prime, but Saturday night college football for ESPN. But I don't know. I mean, it's not like Dale Jr. will be lonely. I mean, he's racing and he's got what 15 Xfinity calls running.
Yeah, usually max of 5 there. The 4 main ones a JRM, and then a rotating part-time 5th car in that 88, which he is going to drive later this year at Bristol, so that'll be exciting to see.
Hopefully the call doesn't burst into flames this year.
Yeah, there we go. That's something that we should hope for, especially because last year at that Xfinity race in Bristol, he was really competitive and leading laps.
I can figure out the hotline. I can't. Wait. My call's on fire. I better get out of this thing.
There you go. There you go there, Dylan. Nice. All right, so now moving on from CW broadcasting talk, let's go and get into some paint scheme talk there, Dylan. I usually do the segment here with Rich Mileto every week, and we talk about some of our favorite paint schemes that are going to be on the track this week. But now we have you covering for Rich here today, so let's get on into it there, Dylan. Give us one of your paint scheme choices for the week.
We might not. Well, you might not like him as a driver, but I think Ty Gibbs' Interstate Batteries 54 call just brings me back to the 90s, because when I think of Interstate Batteries and Joe Gibbs racing, I think of Bobby Labonte, particularly on mile and a half, whether it be at Charlotte or Atlanta, where if you beat the 18 call that day, you deserve to win, because nobody beat the 18 call at Charlotte or Atlanta very often.
Yeah, there was that whole period of a couple years there where Bobby Labonte was just the guy to beat at those mile and a half tracks. And Interstate Batteries, that's a classic Joe Gibbs Racing sponsor. We've seen this car out and about before in different races. Even Ty Gibbs has ran this exact paint scheme at Texas before, driving that same 54 car. But what I think is interesting about it compared to the other Interstate Battery schemes, because all the JGR drivers are running Interstate Battery schemes at different points of the year, but Ty Gibbs, he also on his particular scheme, there's a little bit of an area just to showcase the Monster Energy logo. I always found that pretty interesting.
If only Ty Gibbs could get some facial hair on his beard.
It'll probably take some time, but because he's still very, very young, but he'll get there one day, perhaps. So, interstate batteries, I approve of the choice. Can't go wrong with a classic scheme like that. Still think the Labani ones are probably my favorite interstate battery schemes from back in the day. Just simply can't beat that classic green, red, and black. That was always really cool to me, but this is a cool scheme as well.
What's your scheme?
So my first of two schemes for this week is actually Chris Buescher's fifth third bank scheme. I know Buescher has ran the fifth third bank scheme a couple of times in previous seasons, but this is the first time that he'll be running it this week there with that 17 car. It's a very simple scheme. You got the white fading into the green, fading into the blue, but I find it to be very effective. You have the logo for Fifth Third Bank on the front, and you have the typeface really looking nice and lined up there. The number 17 just pops. And then you also have that RFK little symbolism that there. Rich has pointed it out in previous weeks when we've talked about the RFK paint schemes, but it looks very effective and nice here, Dylan.
Yeah, I like simple paint schemes, different for different teams. That's 17 teams an easy paint scheme to. Plus, if you're a crew chief of spot, I'm like, where's my car? Oh, I can find that. I could find that car in a haystack pretty easily.
Yeah, pretty much. It's very simple but very effective. I like it a lot there. So, Dylan, give us your second paint scheme choice this week.
I might be 31, but I might show my age with this one. Kyle Lawson five scheme. I do not get sick and tired of seeing the Ricky HendrickCalls.com paint scheme. You know me. In fact, I don't know if I have the calls down, but remember having the old Ricky Hendrick, whether it be a truck or truck series or Busch series call back in the day when he would drive the GMAC car. And this paint scheme just brings back a lot of memories. Plus the 5 Hendrick's first call, and it's funny. Kyle Lawson could drive this at Darlington, and it'd be an old school and a new school paint scheme in one.
Yeah, pretty much. It merges the best of the old and the new. This is one of this pretty much is Larson's signature paint scheme since joining Hendrick, pretty much. But it's a very clean scheme. Very, very clean.
It just needs more ruby red from last week.
Yeah, I was a big fan of those 40th anniversary Hendrick schemes. Both Rich and I spotlighted a few of them in last week's show, but even the blue for the HendrickCars.com, it's very simple, very effective, and it is a nice throwback ultimately to the Ricky Hendrick scheme, as you said. But overall, based on the success that Larson has even had in the 2020s so far, this is already considered one of the more iconic paint schemes of the decade, I'd have to say.
It might be the Rainbow Warriors of the 2020s.
Yeah, I certainly think even though there's a few drivers that have been competitive in winning races up there too. I mean, we can think of William Byron, who has won more races in the next gen car than anybody else, but Kyle Larson is not that far behind them.
And Kyle Larson's got what William Byron doesn't have right now. A championship on his mantle. Although Byron's got a Daytona 500.
Yeah, that is very true. William Byron, the Daytona 500 winner from earlier this season there. But as for the HendrickCars.com scheme, it's really just great. You can't go wrong with it. So I'm going to go ahead and mention about my last paint scheme for this week, and that's Joey Logano's AAA insurance scheme. This is the very first time that he's running the AAA scheme this year, and ultimately it's a very simple but very effective paint scheme as it is, and good usage of the sponsor logo in particular, and it's just really a lot of fun. I like how it looks fast.
Yeah, plus, isn't AAA the sponsor of the race?
Triple A, they've been the sponsor of this race in the past, but the sponsor this week is Auto Trader. So
Okay. I'm like, I thought Joey Logano's call would have been orange. I'm like, Auto Trader's like a Penske call. Something.
yeah, but AAA used to be the main sponsor of a bunch of different races, particularly the ones at Auto Club Speedway, but that's changed overall as it is. Here's another look at the car and where you can actually see the hood, and they actually make good usage of the hood space as well with the logo. I just think the way that the logo is incorporated with this and the simplicity of it is what makes me really like it so much there, Dylan.
Yeah, plus the call gets damaged. You know where to go.
Exactly. See, that's good sponsorship advertisement right there. See, they got to contact you for ideas like that, man. You got the right direction in mind.
Yeah, yeah, I'll be the Hall of Fame marketing director of Penske next.
Nice. Love it. Alrighty then. Now that we've went through some of our favorite paint schemes there, let's get on into the actual race. Let's talk about Texas, Dylan. There, what do you think of the track? What should we expect out of the racing at this mile and a half, the first one since Las Vegas earlier this year?
Honestly, Sean, do you want me to be completely objective, or do you want me to be completely unobjective for this answer?
So let's talk about this particularly from what to expect out of the racing and how that could affect DFS and betting.
Be honest with you, I think this is going to be another track position race. I mean, we saw what happened in Vegas, where Tyler Reddick, especially at the end of long runs, was not unable to catch Kyle Lawson. Texas has proven to be one of, if not NASCAR's hardest tracks to pass, especially with this call. I mean, it seems like tires don't matter for anything there, and it's going to be a track position race, and one where you're going to have to where you not only have one groove, but there were also tire issues to watch out because remember the All Star race in 22 where Kyle Lawson wrecked out of second, I think it was, and then Kyle Busch wrecked while leading. Took Ross Chastain and for one of the wildest rides in the next gen car. Then Chase Elliott hit the wall, and with I'm like that might have been crazier than the Hail Melvin and Martinsville.
The Melon still is something that really is crazy to this day. But yeah, that was a pretty crazy crash, referring back to the All-Star race in 2022 when Blaney won.
Yeah, and the way that race ended, create a little bit of a controversy, but that's another story for the I think this is going to be I think this is going to be different than Vegas in a way, similar but different. At Vegas, you could use the high line, but at Texas, it'll probably be more of a bottom track. So you better not start 25th, otherwise your crew chief's going to have to come over wrapping under his hat.
Yeah, pretty much. So you ultimately think that this is going to be a race where we got to really use dominators more than anything else, correct?
Yeah, particularly if some of the big names start up front, because if you see I mean, yes, it's only 267 laps. You don't get quite the race dominator points. I mean, if somebody saw like a Martinsville or Richmond or Bristol, but I think this is a race where one guy or maybe two guys in particular could lead 100 laps.
That certainly was the case over at Las Vegas, where it was just a dominant race by Kyle Larson leading 181 laps earlier this year and sweeping both of the stages. So it could be pretty interesting, but ultimately, we're going to have to really pay attention to qualifying and seeing where these drivers start and see how much of a feel that they have for their cars this weekend over at Texas in practice. So you'd have to say, ultimately we really have to pay close attention towards pre-race events, right, Dylan?
Yeah, and plus, first time Cup Series is going to Texas in April since I have no idea since many years, several years. Because I mean, we've seen the All-Star race in June, we've seen Cup race in July, we've seen playoff race in September and October. Now we're back in April.
Yeah, it has been since 2019. March 31st, 2019 was the last spring race at Texas. So, and that was in a completely different car.
Yeah, so first time in April with this call. So hopefully we get side by side racing. But I mean, after how Vegas was, where seemingly only two guys could sort of lead the race, I'm optimistic, but I'm cautiously optimistic. We'll have good racing.
Well, that is the hope. That is the goal. So ultimately, what do you think about, other than the Dominators, how should we address the rest of a DFS lineup with some of those other drivers? What would you say your strategy would be?
I think it'd be looking at track history, look at who did well in Vegas and Texas in the past, and figuring out like maybe you get somebody on the cheap end, somebody who feels like they're better at Texas or potentially undervalued, or avoiding somebody who's maybe overvalued this week. So finding the right balance, because everybody wants to stack in Kyle Larson. Everybody wants to stack Denny Hamlin and William Byron. But guess what you're going to need with those guys? You're going to need values. Because eventually, if Kyle Larson's 11K, William Byron's 10.8, Denny Hamlin's 10.5, guess what? You're going to run out of money pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty much. Salaries especially get taken up quickly. I find the DraftKings pricing in particular makes it more difficult for that compared to the FanDuel pricing this week. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Plus, you don't have 400 laps. I mean, DraftKings pricing is usually softer at a road course, or next week at Talladega, where you could pretty much play whatever lineup you want.
Yeah, pretty much so. So, all right. Before we get into our picks, I am going to make a disclaimer to those that are watching or listening to us that we make these picks in mind before practice and qualifying. Whenever Rich and I do this show each and every week, we make our early picks and bets. And sometimes practice and qualifying can greatly swing or change how we feel about different sorts of drivers. So go out there. Go into fantasyguru.com, hit us up in the NASCAR Discord, ask us any questions throughout the weekend. Rich will be there and I will be there. We'll be able to help you sort out all the different lineups and picks. We'll have articles, we'll have cheat sheets. Go in there, get into the NASCAR Discord. You can do that by getting the Game Time MVP All Access Premium. You can also remember the special offer. You get any MLB package. You'll be able to get the Game Time MVP All Access Pass for free. Just be sure to get it. Contact support at fantasyguru.com. They'll be able to help you out with all that. Ted Schuster and the others, they'll get your back. Now, Dylan, let's get on into it. Let's talk about some of the top price drivers to watch. I know you, before the show, we have a show sheet. You did not put any of the picks on that show sheet, so I have no idea who you're about to name for all the picks in each of our categories, so this will be fun for me to experience blindly too. But let's get on into it, Dylan. What are your 3 top price picks to watch?
Well, let's see. The hottest guy in NASCAR, I hear he won a grandfather clock last week. He won the Texas race last fall. He's won, well, he's practically won any different racetrack you could think of. It could be a donkey track in the middle of a blizzard, or the Daytona 500, William Byron.
Nice. William Byron was one of the picks on my list as well. So you and I are in agreement there that Byron is going to be one of the ones to watch. What are some of the statistics that have you in mind for picking Byron this week?
He's what the winningest guy in the next gen call, and seemingly I look at the races he's won this year. Yeah, the Daytona 500 is a little bit of a crapshoot, but how he controlled Coda, and then how he overcame, a less than stellar qualifying position. Plus, with that call, with that crew chief and driver, that's a trio capable of winning any different race imaginable. And Byron is great late in races because Daytona 500 made late moves. Martinsville, we saw what he did on the last pit stop, and even this race last year, passing, I think it was Bubba with like 6 laps to go.
Yeah, that is correct. He led the final 6 laps in last year's race at Texas. Texas has been a pretty good track for William Byron.
Yeah, it helps you start up front, right?
For sure. He has an average starting position of 11th since all Texas races at 2021. So that's pretty solid. We can count on him in order to get a top 10 starting position. Also interesting is that William Byron is one of only 2 drivers in the field to finish in the top 10 in each of the last 3 Texas races. So that's a statistic right there to keep in mind with how good he is at this track. So
that just took. Well, you just you just booted the next guy off. The one of my guys I was thinking about off my list because he didn't finish top 10 last year.
Yeah, only 2 drivers have been able to do that in the last 3 Texas races. Byron was being one of them. One of my own picks in a tier below, that's a tease for you. It also is the other driver to accomplish that feat. But let's get on into it. What are your other 2 drivers out of the top price range that you have your eye on this week there, Dylan?
Anytime, anytime you think of the 24 call, the 5 call is right on Paul, or maybe even a smidge ahead of him. I mean, Kyle Lawson dominated the Las Vegas race, led basically 2/3 of the race, and again, similar driver, call, crew chief, Kyle Lawson capable of winning. I think he's got two wins at Texas. He won the All-Star. I know he won the All-Star race and then the playoff race in 2021. So Kyle Lawson can make Texas into any kind of track. I don't feel like there's a weakness for him. I mean, who would ever think Kyle Lawson could win Martinsville?
He's won there before, so there you go. Alrighty, and regarding Larson, he actually was on my list of 3 as well there too. He actually is my top choice in order to win this race just because of how strong he was at Las Vegas. And we also talk about his success at 1.5-mile tracks before in the Cup Series. He's won more at 1.5-mile intermediates than any other driver since 2021, 9 times. 9 times there, Dylan.
What if I told you Kyle Lawson led 256 laps in a Texas race?
I could totally believe that. I'm pretty sure he's done that before.
Yeah, Kyle Lawson's like the lap leader this year. If you bet the over under on Kyle Lawson laps led, you'd be making some money right now.
That's right. He's the only driver currently so far this season to have led over 400 laps. The next closest driver to him is Denny Hamlin at 358 laps led this year.
And then the third guy on my list, I'm not going with the layup in Tyler Reddick because I feel like Tyler Reddick's more capable of winning this race. He's won here before in the next gen call, won stage 1 in this race last year. I want to see what Ryan Blaney's capable of doing this weekend because everyone has said, how well will the Fords perform on these mile-and-a-half intermediate tracks? I think Ryan Blaney finished third here in Las Vegas. He can grind a top five better than most. And while Texas is not Ryan Blaney's best track, I think the driver and the crew chief can overcome maybe a less than stellar call. Although, to be honest with you, sometimes when Penske is off, they could be really off. Like Joey Logano and Dover last year was one of the worst races I've ever seen him run.
Yeah, that's true. And there's been a few races this year where Penske's just been off on missing the setup. We've seen that out of Logano in a couple of the races so far earlier in this season there too. Whereas Blaney, he's been the standout at Team Penske based on his consistency alone so far. He's the highest finishing Ford in the Cup Series standings right now, fifth in the standings. Average finish of 11.5.
Yeah. And I know Atlanta and Texas are different tracks, but I mean, Blaine's got confidence. I mean, I'm sure it might have been a drafting track, but Ryan Blaine won't be intimidated. Won the All-Star race there a couple years ago, so at least knows the way to victory lane.
That is very true. He did win the All-Star race. He's never won a points-paying race at Texas, but in 15 starts, he does have 8 top 10 finishes. So there is definitely some confidence there. And he's finished in the top 10 in 7 of the last 8 Texas races, with only last year's race being the outlier because he got involved in an accident. So.
Why should, yeah. Of course. Don't tell me if that was a flat tire, I'd be shocked if it wasn't.
I need to look back at that to be sure, but I think it might have been a flat tire. It might have.
Hey, one Talladega, so it didn't matter anyway.
That is very true. So, as for the last driver on my own list of the top price drivers to watch, it is indeed Tyler Reddick. He ended up finishing second in the Las Vegas race earlier this season, was the only driver on speed capable of hanging it with Kyle Larson. He probably could have even really won that race had he had more time to catch him, or if he just didn't have pit road mistakes there with his crew overall. He's won at Texas before. He's been very strong. 2311 Racing, they're probably a team that has shown a lot of speed across different kinds of racetracks overall. There's a lot I like there with Tyler Reddick this week. He is within my 3 of my top price drivers to watch there, Dylan.
Yeah, let me tell you this. If Tyler Reddick's in the state of Texas, he will probably be on my fantasy team this weekend.
Yeah, I think so for mine too. And especially if the practice results look extra promising, watch out. That's all I'll say.
Just needs to keep all four tires and avoid pit issues because 2311 is good for one pit issue a race.
Yeah, that is true. We just don't know if it'll be Bubba or if it'll be with Reddick.
Oh gosh, yeah, this will be the race where Bubba's leading, and he'll have a loose wheel.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened at Vegas. He had a wheel basically get loose and not be aligned properly, and that ended up getting him many laps down as a result.
Didn't that happen to Buescher too?
Well, Buescher's case was they didn't get the lug nuts all tight. It was kind of like the opposite with Bubba, where they couldn't just get the lug nuts off the car, and the car was off alignment there. But with Buescher, he literally lost the tire and ended up crashing. So.
Yeah, and then and you know what happens if the wheel falls off on the racetrack? Bad things happen.
Very bad things. But what may not be so bad is our mid-tier drivers. So let's get on into our mid-tier drivers to watch there, Dylan. I don't know any of your 3, so let's get on into it there. What's your first mid-tier driver to watch this week?
Well, I mean, we all just mentioned him, but what about Bubba? I mean, he led 111 laps in last year's race, darn near won it. We know what the 2311 calls do on mile-and-a-half races. He's won Kansas, contended on mile-and-a-halves in the past, and as long as there aren't any issues in the pits and Bubba gets a good qualifying run, I think Bubba's more than capable of not just contending, but even winning this weekend.
That's very true. He did end up scoring his best career finish at Texas the last time the Cup Series visited there, finishing third and leading 111 laps overall. So we've said it before with these 2311 cars, they can bring the speed. It's just about minimizing the mistakes and just keeping their drivers in the hunt overall. I do like the call for Bubba. I think he is priced a little bit highly on DraftKings at around 8,700 overall, but I do think though that for FanDuel he's a little more fairly priced at 9,000 there. So I especially like him for FanDuel this week.
Yeah, I mean, he might be 8,700. I mean, I thought he'd be a little cheaper, but again, I mean, sometimes you got to bite the bullet. I mean, I think Bubba's 15 to 1 and 15 to 1 in the betting market.
Yeah, on DraftKings Sportsbook, he's plus 1,200 there.
Oh,
So 12 to 1 odds for him to outright win currently.
I knew there'd be money coming on him because everybody sees those 2311 numbers.
That is indeed correct there. So my first of the drivers on my list for mid-tier options is the other driver that I teased before that was the only driver to finish top 3 alongside, in the top 10 alongside William Byron in the last 3 Texas races, and that's Brad Keselowski, the driver of the number 6 there. He's RFK, they've been pretty good, pretty sneaky at this track, especially with Brad overall. And he has good history there. 28 starts, 13 top 10 finishes. He's never won at Texas before, but he's finished in the top 10 in the last 7 races at the track overall. So he has the consistency there, and I like the price for him.
Do you worry about RFK's speed this year? Because it seems like RFK's taking a step back.
I feel like the speed with RFK, ultimately, they haven't shown the peak amount of speed that they were showing, like, say, last year, but they've still been getting results for the price. And we have to also think back towards Las Vegas. Even though Brad himself did not qualify well, he started 25th at Vegas. He still ended up having a solid day for DFS where he finished 13th overall. So that's still something that I'm considering there too. I like the consistency out of Brad. This is a good track for him. And equipment-wise, it's there enough that I think he can get a respectable finish for the value.
Yeah, you're thinking more driver car history. I can't believe Brad K hasn't won a Texas because in like 2014 and 2015, darn near won both races. I think he wrecked Jeff Gordon out of the playoffs, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, well, actually, Jimmy Johnson stole the win that night instead of Brad, but Brad was close.
Which one? Jimmy stole the win both races.
Actually, yeah, I think you might be right about that.
I think Jimmy won like 3 or 4 fall races in a row at Texas.
Yeah, true. All right, so let's get into your next pick there, Dylan. Who you got next?
I can't. You want sneaky good value this weekend? How about Daniel Suarez? Because
nice.
when I saw that price, I'm like, wait a minute. That sort of surprised me because we know Atlanta and Texas are different tracks, and we know track position matters. But I feel like Daniel Suarez and his team are capable of having a good result on occasion. We know what Ross has done at this track. Seemingly, not every track, but they're all Ross same tracks, and this feels like a track where, the team driver overcome. I think Suarez finished, what was he, 11th, and he led a decent chunk of the Las Vegas race. So I mean, ever since the win in Atlanta, I feel like Suarez has been disappointing. I feel like this is a week where Suarez can get back on track.
I 100% agree. Suarez is actually one of my 3 picks as well. He was the second driver that I was going to name on my list there too. He's actually had some promising results in trackhouse racing equipment before at Texas with 3 finishes of 12th or better in the last 3 races at Texas. So ultimately, he's been pretty good at this track in recent years, and he also was solid overall at Las Vegas, as mentioned. He finished 11th after starting 16th, led 15 laps. Ultimately, I think Suarez is a driver that could surprise this week, ultimately. And for the price, I like it a lot.
So then, who's your last mid-tier driver?
So ultimately, with this one, for my final pick, I kind of went with 2 drivers, but they're both kind of in a similar sort of position and circumstance, and that's Chase Briscoe and Noah Gragson. So Briscoe's Texas is surprisingly a pretty good track for Briscoe, especially in the 3 races that Briscoe has had at Texas, which were points-paying races. He's finished in the top 15 every single time with positive place differential. And he also ran inside the top 10 at the end of the first stage in last year's race as well. And those SHR cars have been sneakily finding speed here and there. And that's where Noah Gragson comes in, because he was the surprise finisher as well at Las Vegas early in the year, finishing 6th out of nowhere pretty much. People weren't expecting the 10 car to just go out there and have a very respectable result. So ultimately, these 2 drivers are priced very similarly. I feel like I like Briscoe a little bit more just because of the experience, but Gragson, in his only start at Texas before in the Cup Series, he also did end up scoring positive place differential as well there, Dylan.
Yeah, and plus we know these youngins like to hold it wide open. Well, if we did, these guys be holding it wide open through 3 and 4.
That is very true. And it really paid off for Noah Gragson earlier at Vegas this season.
Well, it's not a question of if this guy wins the race soon. It's a question when this guy wins the race. I mean, Ty Gibbs feels like he's due with how well that car has run this year.
Yeah, Ty Gibbs, 8,500 on DraftKings, 9,500 on FanDuel. I especially like that price on FanDuel for young Ty Gibbs there ultimately. And this is a track that he actually can have some capable runs if put in the right circumstances before. He does have a top 20 finish in his 2 starts at Texas ultimately. But he also ended up being very solid at Vegas with a top 5 finish earlier in the year.
This is what I'm basing the call, the driver, and the team. I mean, Ty Gibbs, if he can get around Vegas, which we know is a challenge for young drivers, he can get around Texas.
Yeah, that is for sure. I think the call for Ty Gibbs, I like that call. I do think that you can get some use out of Ty Gibbs this week. He's been very consistent this season. I like it there, Dylan. But you know what? Let's quickly go over through our sleepers and values real quick there, Dylan. So just give me your 3 right in one shot there, and we'll quickly review them.
Well, one of them you mentioned what, all the Stewart Haas guys. You forgot one. Josh Berry.
Josh Berry. That's an interesting call. What makes you on Josh Berry this week?
Well, I mean, thinking back to his Xfinity days, he ran really well, particularly in 1.5 tracks, and we would think of him as a short track racer. But he ran well at Texas in the past. I think he won Vegas. And you get to think, well, if this is a track position race, I mean, Josh Berry can at least qualify. can at least qualify well. I mean, he qualified 7th last week at Martinsville. I mean, and yes, I don't necessarily expect him to be necessarily the top running full, but could he get points whether he is starting front or maybe as a PD guy? Because I mean, Rodney Childress, that's his crew chief. I think Josh Berry can handle himself, maybe get a top 15 and be more than satisfactory at what, 6,800.
That's ultimately not a bad price for Josh Berry there on DraftKings. Whereas his FanDuel price, he is 6,000. I do like that price there as well with Josh Berry. He is a driver that I think you can plug in and use comfortably. He's scored positive place differential in a couple of different races this year, including Las Vegas, where he scored a top 20 finish. So that's a call that I don't mind there. I'm going to get into I'm just going to say my 3 sleepers and bargain values. It's just going to be Eric Jones, Carson Hocevar, and Ryan Preece for me. Eric Jones, he's had some solid history at this track. Legacy Motor Club. Ultimately, they've got a bit of an equipment boost since switching to Toyota this year. And Jones, he scored a top 15 at Vegas earlier in the year, so I have some confidence with that. Carson Hocevar scored a top 20 at Vegas earlier in the year. He's had some experience before, and he's been decent at some of these mile-and-a-half tracks in the past. And then Ryan Preece, he's a sneaky good play in the fact that I really like his history at mile-and-a-half since the next-gen car last year when he scored positive place differential in nearly every race at a mile-and-a-half with the next-gen car. So those 3 are my sleepers right there, Dylan.
Yeah, see, yeah. Sometimes you think punt values are gross, and it's like you hold your nose hoping somebody doesn't wreck early or somebody doesn't fall 5 laps down. But a guy like Ryan Preece, I mean, who would ever think a Stuart Haas drive would be 5,700?
That is crazy cheap.
I mean,
He's literally just value.
who's the most expensive Stuart Haas driver this weekend? It's Briscoe, right?
Yeah, that would be Briscoe at 7,700 on DraftKings. And that's the same case for FanDuel as well, where he's 6,800.
Oh gosh. Remember when Kevin Hall would be like 10,000? And then the next drive was like whatever he is. I'm like, there's not one expensive Stuart Haas driver.
Nope. They're all just around the bottom part of the mid tier or just pure value picks.
Times have changed.
Indeed, they have. Quickly give us your rest of your sleepers there, Dylan.
Oh, what about John Hunter Nemechek? I think he is 6,500 positive place differential at Vegas, and I mean, not that great last week at Martinsville, but we know why with his brake cost in the last caution, which almost gave Jeff Gordon a heart attack.
Yeah. I do remember seeing that when they were showing that on the broadcast there. But JHN, he's had some decent runs this season. I could definitely see, especially the thing with JHN is if the practice numbers look good, I am going to be on him with that. But as far as how he will be doing this weekend, I think it's a bit of a question mark because he's been both good and he's been both mediocre at times this season so far.
By the way, how will Austin Hill do? I mean, yes, we think of him as an Xfinity drive, but he's driving the Xfinity N race weekend, so he'll get more practice than anyone.
Yeah, that's very interesting. You mentioned Austin Hill making a part-time cup start in the number 33 for RCR. So he has 3 top 10 finishes in 5 Xfinity Series starts. Ultimately, I think with Hill, a lot of it's going to be qualifying dependent for me. But I think that the potential is there just because the caliber of driver as it is. And especially if the practice numbers look promising enough, I will consider it for the price. Price is
By the way,
definitely friendly enough.
By the way, hopefully RCR can get on this game because Austin Hill might become the best Austin driver in the Cup Series this weekend. But
Yeah, true. When you got Austin Dillon and Austin Cindric as competition, I guess though the stakes aren't too high there.
yeah, I'm just thinking Cindric's at 64, Dillon's at 63, and Hill's at $6,000 even.
Yeah, they are pretty close right there as far as price is concerned.
And Austin Dillon won at Texas. Oh gosh, don't remind me of that race.
Yeah, that was another aero-based race where RCR got the 1-2 finish with Dillon and Reddick. I remember that one.
With the perfectly timed yellow.
Perfectly timed, pretty much.
I mean, honestly, hopefully we get a more exciting race because I don't think we want to see anybody following the leader.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would want to see that. It would not be the most fun kind of race. Let's put it that way. All right, then, with those sleepers and values right behind us, let's get into our core fours real quick. We're going to name the drivers that we like here in order to, for betting purposes, most likely that we like to win based on odds and performance. And then we'll name our DFS core fours, where we're going to take basically the 4 drivers that we like overall for DFS. Let's get into our betting core fours. I'll name mine first. My betting core 4 is going to be Kyle Larson at plus 350, Tyler Reddick at plus 750, Ryan Blaney at plus 1100, and Brad Keselowski at plus 2800. Brad is kind of my long shot pick there. But I do also want to give a shout out to Daniel Suarez at plus 6,000 to win. These are all drivers to bet on outright to win there. So Dylan, what do you think? What are your picks?
Bets. Bubba, I think I saw him at what 15-1. What is he? 12-1 now.
12-1 via DraftKings Sportsbook.
Ross Chastain
plus 1,800 on DraftKings Sportsbook.
Alex Bowman, I think what is he? 25 or 30.
He's plus 3,000, so 30-1 odds to win via DK.
And then Daniel Suarez.
As mentioned, he's plus 6,000, so 60-1 odds to win. Yeah, you got some nice little long shots there overall. I like some of these picks. You know me, I'm a fan of the Suarez call, especially. I do think that Bubba can get it done at plus 1,200 too.
I must have been watching. I must have been watching too much golf because all I keep seeing is a long shot win these golf tournaments.
Yeah, it could happen at Texas as well. We get in the sort of circumstances. We mentioned it. Austin Dillon with his Texas win, I'm pretty sure he did not have small odds during that weekend when he won as well. So there you go. All right, getting into the DFS core 4, my DFS core 4 that I have 3 drivers that work on both sites. That be Kyle Larson at 11,000 on DraftKings, 14,000 on FanDuel, Brad Keselowski at 8,200 and 7,800 on FanDuel, Daniel Suarez at 7,200 on both sites, DraftKings and FanDuel. Whereas my 4th driver, the value pick, is based on the site here. For DK, I have Ryan Preece at 5,700, and for FanDuel, I have Carson Hocevar at 4,200. Hocevar's price is a little bit better than Preece on FanDuel, so he gets the nod for me there. What are your core 4 DFS picks there, Dylan?
Kyle at 11K, especially with his history at recent history at Texas, Vegas, mile and a half, next gen, 5 call, whatever you want. Bubba at 8,700. I mean, Vegas aside, I'm looking back on last year's race, led 111 laps, and I feel like a win's coming for one of those 23-11 calls. Give me, yeah, top. Yeah, I do like these Suarez. Do like the Suarez pick at 7,200. And you know what? You know what? I guess we're in agreement on Ryan Preece because I never thought a Stewart House driver would be 5,700 anywhere.
Yeah, and it's just he is grossly underpriced. And he has been for a couple times this season, but for a mile and a half, grossly underpriced this week.
And then watch this. Ryan Preece will start 37th or 38th, and then he'll be 40% owned.
Yeah, that'll be crazy if that happens. But it just goes to show qualifying and practice could swing our opinions in a matter of seconds after it's all done. So
Yeah,
there you
Ryan.
go.
Yeah, Ryan Preece on the pole bucket.
Oh man, wouldn't that be something there? All right, Dylan. Thank you for joining me on the Race Guru Thunder Hour. Is there anything you want to promote to the Fantasy Guru audience about where they can find you, what you're doing, and be sure to talk about anything you want to talk about. Promote away, man.
Check me out. Host the Big D podcast. Check me out at Dylan S Sports One on Twitter or X, and my YouTube content is on the Spunky Spectrum Sports.
That's a nice, cool name. I like that. All right, then. Thank you, Dylan, for joining me. This has been the Race Guru Thunder Hour. I thank all of you out there for watching and listening and keeping up with us each and every week. Rich Milletta will be back with us next week when we cover Talladega. All right, everyone. Keep an eye on fantasyguru.com. Get the MVP All-In Access Pass. Be sure to get that. Get the MLB deal as described earlier. Get any MLB package. You can get the Game Time MVP Pass for free. Get that. Contact support at Fantasy Guru. Catch us in the Discord. We have articles and cheat sheets all week. We'll be answering your questions. This has been Sean Engel. Thank you for watching Race Guru Thunder Hour. We'll see you next time.